Good morning, 8th graders. So this is the foldable option for 9.6.0. You will notice that this foldable is actually not just one, but two foldables. Okay, there are two important concepts we need to get through. Excuse me. So I'm going to go through this first one, which is our atmosphere foldable, and then I'll go through the energy transfer one here in a moment. So first things first, you don't need to put your name on this because this is actually going to get pasted onto a separate sheet of paper versus like this one will be pasted onto here. Okay, so just so you're aware, but please remember to put your name on the piece of paper so that I don't have to try to figure out who actually did it. Okay, so we're going to read through the directions first, and then we will go through and actually start like doing some of it. So you're going to cut out the diagram and names of the atmosphere layers on the following pages. So there are 2 pages. If you wanted to, you could honestly just separate them. So you're only looking at the atmosphere one. Place the semicircles in order from smallest to largest. The smallest semicircle represents the layer of the atmosphere closest to Earth's surface. The largest represents the furthest layer from Earth's surface. Paste the name of the atmosphere layers on the appropriate semicircle. Write a description of the atmospheric layer on each cutout. Describe the relationship between altitude and temperature for each layer. Identify the range of each layer's thickness. So example, the troposphere is from 0 kilometers to about 12 kilometers. Determine and paste the image of clouds, meteors, ozone, space shuttles, and parachutes in the atmospheric layer in which they are found. Some of these you are going to have to do a little bit of research. Okay, and then on a piece of construction paper, fold and paste the atmosphere layers about 2 centimeters apart, starting with the image of the Earth closest to you. Okay, so what does this all tell me? Well, this tells me that I am going to cut out the diagrams and names of the atmospheric layers, place the semicircles, order from smallest to largest, paste the names of the atmospheric layers to the appropriate circle. I need a description of each layer. I need to describe the relationship between altitude and temperature for each layer. Identify the range, and then I give you an example. And then I need to figure out where these images go. So determine and paste the images onto the layers that they work from, and then on a piece of construction paper, so on a separate piece of paper, I need to paste the atmospheric layers onto it. Okay, so I am just going to go through a couple of these just so that we are kind of aware. So I am going to quick pause, do a little side cutting so that you don't see like 20 minutes of a video. Okay, so I did a little bit of cutting. So what I did is I made sure that I cut out my Earth because to me, like I'm thinking, oh, I need to make sure that this one ends up here and these go behind it. So I just want to make sure that I have the right thought process with that. Okay, so that's the beginning part. I then also, so I cut out the diagram, I ordered them from smallest to largest. Now granted there's 2 more layers above this. And then I cut out the terms. So I know that the troposphere is right here. The troposphere is closest to the Earth, so that's where it's going to go. So I would paste that on there. And then I need to describe the relation, or I need to write a description of this atmosphere. So if this is my troposphere, I'm going to put everything else off to the side for now. Okay, now troposphere is a little bit tricky because it is the smallest of the atmospheres. So you can either write it down here, or if you needed to turn it over and write it on the back. Okay, I'm gonna just set that there. We know this is our troposphere. And if you're like, I don't like how that fits on there, go ahead and write troposphere on here. As long as I know what you're trying to say, that's all that matters. Troposphere. Okay, so troposphere. This is where all weather happens. All weather happens. Okay, this is where we live. It's closest to the earth and all that. Okay, so that's my little description. Then describe the relationship between altitude and temperature. Okay, so as we increase in altitude, we decrease in temp. So decrease in temperature. Now, hopefully you write it a little bit nicer to where it's not all squished like this, but this is what's going to happen. Okay, identify your range. So I'm just going to write it above here. The troposphere, for example, is from 0 kilometers to about 12 kilometers. Okay, awesome. Now I need to determine and paste the images, so clouds, meteors, ozone, space shuttle, and parachutes onto this layer. So again, the troposphere is a little silly in the fact that it's so small, but our clouds, because this is where our weather takes place, would go within the troposphere. I have seen a combination of kids like writing all this on the back and then pasting the clouds on here. I've seen cool little like 3D-ish sort of a thing to where if you wanted to do something more like this, whatever works. Okay, but in the end, you should have this information, the picture of the cloud on the troposphere, and then when you go to put it onto your construction paper, it should be layered behind this. Okay, and like I said, you're going to add in your other layers, their names, and the pictures that go with it. Okay, so generally that's what it is going to look like in the end. Okay, so that is our atmosphere foldable. Remember, you'll do this with all 5 layers, with all the names, all that fun jazz. Okay, phenomenal. I'm going to set this off to the side, and I'm going to get our energy transfer one. So, our energy transfer foldable. Again, I'm going to read through the directions, and then I'm going to let you know what's going on. Okay, so the directions. Cut out the following shapes below. Decide what picture and definition belong to each type of thermal energy. Paste the vocab rays, that's this by the way, of the sun on the following diagram. It's on the back page. Then draw an example of how this type of thermal energy occurs on Earth. Describe how each transfer occurs in our atmosphere, and then layers the toppers of the correct circles matching the definition and diagram to each example you've drawn. Paste finished diagram to a piece of construction paper. Okay, so what I'm going to do, cut the following shapes. I'm going to paste the vocab rays on the diagram, and then I need to draw an example of how the thermal energy occurs on Earth. Essentially, I need to describe how each transfer occurs in our atmosphere. And then layer the toppers on the correct circle matching the definition and diagram to each example. Okay, so again, I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm going to make some cuts. I'll start layering it on here and kind of explaining what the thought process is. Okay, bear with me. Okay, so I cut out a couple of these just so we can kind of see what's going on. Okay, so when it says to paste the vocab rays onto the sun on the following diagram, it means you are going to place these on here. Okay? So you'll paste them down. Perfect. Okay? Then what you're going to need to do is draw an example of how this thermal energy occurs on Earth, and then describe how each transfer occurs in our atmosphere. Goodness, it's been a morning apparently. So if I'm looking at convection, okay, remember this is the movement of particles. So how I would show this is maybe we have the sun coming to Earth with its radiation. It's starting to heat up the atmosphere to where you have hot air rising. And then it meets the top of the troposphere and it starts to cool and come down. So cool air sinking. Okay. And then this continues. I'm just going to put then maybe a cloud up here. Okay. But this is how convection is happening within our atmosphere and on Earth. Okay. Then what I need to do is I need to identify the definition and the picture that they give us. Okay, so again, it is the movement of particles to heat, transfer of energy by movement of particles. So they have these little dotted lines on here because this is where you should be folding. Now, granted, it is the smallest little bit you're folding. Okay. And then you are going to layer these on top of what you just drew or described. Okay. So I would put a little bit of glue on the back of this fold. I would place it over this, and then the definition, again, little glue on this fold. Place it on top of that to where you'll be able to read the definition, see their picture, and then see how it's working in our atmosphere. Okay? Awesome. That's it. So make sure you place your name on this one for sure, but both this and your atmosphere diagram are going to need to be turned in together to be counted for full credit. So any questions, again, please let your teachers know. We are here to help. Phenomenal. Have a great rest of your day.